All right, hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to continue talking about company loyalty. I got a comment from someone on the last video about how he said company loyalty is kind of like a scam and that you shouldn't feel bad for or even really hesitate for pursuing other opportunities or leaving or kind of abandoning like the CEO or whoever the people are above you. And I agree with that. I mean, everyone at the end of the day is going to do what's in their best interest. So, company loyalty can be good, right? It depends on what type of system you're in. If you're with a great company that is giving you raises that keep up with inflation and actually outpace inflation, but at a bare minimum, they should be at least keeping up with the real rate of inflation. And I would say most actual raises don't. But if you have a company that, they're giving you raises, another thing the guy said was the company should be investing in you in some way, right? If you're giving your time and your labor and your resources to the company, are they offering you, chances to grow? Are they offering you potential advancement, potential to take on more responsibility? And if they are, then that can be good. Now, you have to be able to evaluate if it's actually worthwhile, because like I've said in a couple other videos, sometimes there is more responsibility that they want you to do, but there's not necessarily more pay, right? And so those things kind of tend to butt heads of, we want you to do all this additional stuff, we want you to take this role, but we're not really going to pay you more. And for some people, that's okay. I mean, they'll play the long game of saying, okay, well, I'm just going to get this additional experience. I'm going to be able to have this experience on my resume. I'll show that I took on more responsibility, and that will help me in my future. And then a lot of people, they look at it kind of from, they're not discounting that experience is important, but they're looking at it from, hey, if you were asking me to do this and you're holding me to a higher standard and you're going to want me to do additional things and I'm going to take on more responsibility, I want to be paid adequately for that additional responsibility. And I think that's totally reasonable. Some companies will try to get you to just take on more responsibility without paying you anything. Or they'll offer you an amount of money that is basically the same. I mean, it might be just a slightly more, but is it going to change your life in any significant way? No, it won't. So as the individual, and again, this is really it goes back to the individual in all these cases, you have to be able to distinguish, is this worth my time? If I'm gonna stick with this company, is it a good company? Do I feel like I'm being fairly compensated? If I'm looking for growth, right, are there lanes for growth or for additional responsibility? And again, people say responsibility, like additional, they want to get a promotion or they want to take on more responsibility, as I said. But why do they want to do that? You guys just think about that for a second. Ask yourself, do they really want more responsibility? Do they? Or do they want more money? I won't answer that, but you guys just go ahead and think about that, right? More responsibility, maybe, but what do you really want, right? Do you think a lot of people are going to want to take on significantly more responsibility if it comes with no money? Would you? So that's just something to think about, right? So if you're at a good company, you know you're going to be getting paid pretty well for the market and for the area in which you're living, and it's going to allow you a comfortable type lifestyle. So that would be what I would call a good situation, and you'd want to stay with that, and you wouldn't want to take that for granted. And that you're getting compensated fairly and that you're getting raises that keep up with the real cost of living. And if you want to take on additional responsibility and you want to grow within the company, that path is there for you. And as a younger person or as someone that's still relatively young, if you're 30 years old and younger, or around that age, you kind of want to look at the pathway of people that are ahead of you and say, hey, these people that are 1 spot or 2 spots or 3 spots or 4 spots ahead of me in terms of my role here, are they happy? If I just of course I don't really know how much money they're making or their situation, but if I look at their happiness quotient, do they seem like they're happy? And if the answer is yes, then it's like, okay, it seems like that's worth it. I do want to put in the work so that I can be where this person is and be making a good income. And I see that she has a nice house, and I see that she drives a nice car, and I see that she has a family, and I see that she has all these things that this job has provided her, or this career, right? If that's not the case, right? If you were able to look at someone and say, geez, it doesn't seem like they have a lot of money. It seems like they're stressed out about money. They kind of drive a car that's not that nice. They seem to be stressed out about money all the time. They're pinching their pennies. They don't have a nice car. They live, I've said car a few times, but they live maybe way outside the city, and they don't really want to live there, but that's the only place they can afford. And, then you have to start looking at it and say, okay, well, is that what I want to do? Do I want to end up like that? And that's maybe 2 or 3 or 4 positions away from where you are. And that's nothing against the individual, but if you're the person that sees this, you have to understand, oh, this company or this system hasn't really rewarded the people for staying here or for taking on more responsibility. Now, maybe they've rewarded them somewhat, but not necessarily adequately enough to maybe get to where you want to go, right? If you're just making slightly more money for basically dedicating your whole existence to the company or to whatever job you're doing, then you're getting the short end of the stick, right? Because you're selling yourself and your time and your energy and your labor for in exchange, you're not getting enough money to really live the type of life that you want to live. And so I think that's where a lot of people kind of pull back and they say, you know what? I'm gonna kind of pull back on that. I'm not gonna put so much energy into this place because they're not adequately compensating me to live a lifestyle for what they're asking. They're asking you to dedicate a lot of your time and life and energy, and in exchange, you get barely enough money to really exist, right? Where at least where you live. So that's my thinking on it. I mean, every company's different. Every situation's different. No 2 situations are really like the same. But you just have to be able to assess, most importantly, are you happy? If you're happy with it and you're fine with it and you like the balance between work and your free time and your life, that's great. Or maybe you just really love to work and you really like the job that you're at and the money might be okay, but you just really love the job. So you want to stay there because that's really what you love to do. But if you're in it mostly for the money, right? Because most people at the end of the day are not going to work for free. If you're in it mostly for the money, you have to realize, if I'm going to be putting in additional labor or additional work, am I getting paid fairly? And if the answer is no, I think you shouldn't do it. If you don't think the additional work you're doing is going to result in you getting an additional amount of resources, it's not a good deal. And that's kind of when you have to walk away, right? So, but if a company is making you an offer and they say, hey, Josh, we know that we're asking you to do more, but we're also going to pay you a very respectable amount of money to do this. And your rate and your salary is going to go up and you're going to make more money. And we're going to ask you to sacrifice and put more time into these tasks and the responsibility and everything. But in exchange, it's the give and take. In exchange, you're going to get way more money, or you're going to get, the potential to make a lot more money. Not just theoretically, but actually. And here's how that's going to happen, right? And if they can't tell you that, you have to be skeptical, right? Because you're probably going to end up working a lot harder and then maybe making around the same amount of money, it's not a good deal. It's not a good deal. No one would do that. No one would do that, right? It's like if you have a gas station selling gas for $6 and then right across the street, the gas station is selling for $4. I mean, what, you guys, right? What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Where are you going to buy the gas? As long as the other gas station doesn't have a line of like 1 million people, you're going to go to the one that has $4 gas, right? It's that same type of theory. No one would work so much harder to get paid the same amount of money. You have to be able to analyze am I being compensated fairly for the work I'm doing? And if I'm being asked to do more, am I getting paid adequately for the additional amount of labor that I'm putting forth? So that's my thoughts on it. It depends on what company you're with. If you're with a good company, it can be good. If you're with a company that, doesn't really value you, then they kind of treat you like a number. And so you have to do that math for yourself. But subscribe if you want. Let me know what you think. See you on the next one. Take care.